Good evening, everybody, and welcome along to this edition of The Final Whistle on LairMedia.tv. And our usual email is info@lairmedia.tv. And thanks to all the people who made comments on all our shows up to now, and we really appreciate them. And for all of you who participate in the show as well again tonight. We've done a few tonight because between holidays and people celebrating a match that happened yesterday, still celebrating. But we'll come to I must get my I'm going to make no excuses because obviously the All-Ireland final, which is one of our premier sporting events in Ireland, in any case, the All-Ireland senior hurling final was held yesterday in Croke Park. A bit earlier than usual because of the unusual times we are. It's normally a week or two later. But the result wouldn't have been any different, in my opinion. It was held next year because I feel this Limerick team are reaching their peak now, in my opinion, and not because Cork were slaughtered, but because any other team would have been slaughtered yesterday anyway, in my opinion. They won back-to-back All-Irelands, historically speaking, for the record, and obviously they will be going for 3 in a row next year, and only 4 or 5 teams have done that, and I think Limerick will be quite well capable of doing that, provided they hold their focus. But anyway, welcome Anna Moore to the show.
Hi, Pat. Hi,
and
everybody.
Welcome Dirk de Klein to the show.
Hi, Pat.
Now, we're expecting another guest to come in, so we've sent him all the usual things. But Joe, if you're still out there around space, you're welcome to come in anyway, you know. As I said, we sent around some talking points as we do during the show, which can bring up into, like, obviously we'll be discussing the hurling final, we're discussing the Premiership and a bit of tennis. We'll be asking the question, is the career of Rafa Nadal over? And we'll be talking about the Salheim Cup. We won't be talking about any detail. It's golf. We're only highlighting that because first time ever an Irish female golfer has been picked. Well, it's the female version of the Ryder Cup. Leona Maguire, well deserved, I suppose, if you've been following her. Boxing, then we'll be looking at Manny Pacquiao, the Pac-Man, who I think is 5 weights and a different fight. He's been world champion at 5 different weights, I think.
I think it was 5, yeah.
But
as I said before, I'm not really a lover of professional boxing.
Yeah, and he fought a fight over the weekend, which I happened to see. At 42 years of age, I think, like most professional boxers, it's a fight too many. Mark Williams,
too many.
The evergreen Mark Williams over there in the snooker, he won the British Open out of nowhere. He was a huge long shot. Another bet missed there. And Alan McLaughlin, we touched him and he passed away very young there a couple of weeks ago. They're honouring him in Swindon Town. But anyway, get back to the hurling. Anna, I better start with you being a Limerick woman, and I'm sure you were amongst a sea of green and white yesterday around 10 to 5 or 5 to 5, whatever time it was. Well, it was well over before then anyway.
But I think, Pat, the sea of green has been around Limerick for the last week. Every house has flags and buntings. And below, my daughter, my son lives in Raybogue, and it was a pleasure. That's where Garrod Hegarty comes from. And the flags were on, big flags on all the posts the whole way down. It was fabulous to go down by Raybogue. St. Patrick's put up all those flags. It was fabulous to watch it, you know. And I'm being honest now, anyone I was talking to, they were all saying, I said, how do you think we get on? Maybe 5 or 6 points. That's what people thought. They thought it was going to be a very close fight. I thought it'd be a close fight. But as I said, my mother always said, you never rule Cork out until the final whistle goes. But like I said, at half-time, the game was over. You know, it was over at halftime. And where I was watching it, and I'd say other places as well, people lost interest in the game. They were watching it and they weren't watching it. You know, at that stage, they knew Limerick had it won. Yeah. But I have to say, I did feel very sorry. Someone said to me, why do you feel sorry for Cork? I did, because, you know, to come with such expectations, and they did come with expectations, and they did think that they could match Limerick. And in the first 5 minutes, as you saw yourself, we got a goal, they got a goal. There was only a point in it. And then as the first half progressed, Limerick just went into 2 gears ahead of Cork, you know.
Yeah. And Dirk, did you? I know you put up a very astute comment, and which I must compliment you on, publicly as well, because you did say on your social media feed that you thought usually it took two teams to compete in an All-Ireland final. Tongue in cheek. Anyway, Dirk, what did you think of it? What you thought?
What I said, I thought it required two teams to compete in an All-Ireland hurling final.
Yeah.
So I think I only saw one team yesterday. I mean, but I agree with Anna. After a few minutes, I saw a bit of the first half, and it was already kind of dire for Cork at that stage. And the second half, like, I kind of lost interest. I started cooking a dinner, and I just listened in then every once in a while, and only saw the score go up and up and up for Limerick, and just only slightly for Cork. And I was telling my wife, like, this looks more like the score of a rugby match than of a hurling match. So, yeah, but I mean, I think it was. I don't know too much about hurling, of course, me being from a different place altogether. But I mean, I enjoyed the whole atmosphere around as well. Even my street, everyone was having flags out and the whole lot, and it was well decorated in my street, the whole Limerick flag. So I was actually looking out if there's anyone brave enough to have a Cork flag out, because I know there's one or two Cork people living nearby, but no, I didn't see any. So, and to me, they're traitors. Like, you should support your country, no matter where you are. Like, even if it means
yeah. I mean, I suppose the competitiveness for me was shocking. Not because I'm from Cork, but because I love hurling, and not being able to compete in the game, whatever about the scoreboard, was the most disappointing aspect for me. And you're right, Anna, when Cork and Dirk, Cork did travel with some bit of confidence, because I was at the semi-final in Croke Park against Kilkenny, and I saw positive signs in the team. Now, I wasn't confident. I wouldn't say I'd be confident of them beating Limerick, but I was confident that at least they'd give them a game. But really, look, that often happens to a lot of young players in many teams, where on the first occasion, a lot of those Cork players are playing in their very, very first senior All-Ireland hurling competition. And it's not the same as, Anna, playing under 18 or under 19. It's a big, big difference playing in an adult senior competition in Croke Park. I know there's only 40,000 there, but still a lot of people, And so an awful lot of them didn't measure up, which is a good thing to find out about yourself. They didn't measure up. It's as simple as that. Now, they won't measure up to senior hurling. I know that.
But I mean, as their manager said, they'll get positives out of it that they can go away and work on, And a lot of people on social media today now were giving out about the amount of people and no one with masks and social distance. And in my own sport, boxing, a lot of our coaches around the country were saying, we're not left back in to compete. And here you are with 40,000 people allowed into a match, when there's only 50 allowed into a funeral or 100 to a wedding, and no confirmations and no communions.
No. Joe, good evening, Joe Waters.
Good evening, Pat. How are you?
Well, it's great to see you again. I must say I'm surrounded by Limerick now. I'm originally from Cork, but I don't mind that. We have a lovely green background to us anyway, so we've been... Did you, Anna Moore and Dirk de Klein? This is Joe Waters joining us all the way from Seattle.
Hi, Joe.
Hey.
Hi, Joe.
Now, Joe, we were speaking at the top of the program. I know. Did you get to see any of the hurling match yesterday?
Yeah, I did. I streamed it yesterday and watched it.
Yeah. And what did you think?
Well, I was. First of all, commiserations to you, but maybe I have very little sympathy for you, because there was many a day that I went to watch Limerick play Cork, and there was tears of sorrow. So yesterday I didn't mind a little bit to pay that. So, but I thought it was fantastic. The way Limerick played, the way that John Kiley has them playing on the front foot all the time, first to the ball, fellas surrounding the ball, support all the way around. Just the runs from the forward players, the half forwards getting out wide. spreading the field and what have you. I thought it was just terrific. It was so much fun to watch. It really was.
And when you consider yourselves, I suppose, you've been involved in a professional sport for a while, Joe, when you consider these guys are amateurs by and large, but as you said, John Kiley and his backroom staff, definitely in my mind, having been at my first All-Ireland in 66, I think it was, watching hurling, I think John Kiley has totally changed the approach to hurling, both at a fitness level and tactically speaking, in that all the players on the field are utilised. I know it's a stupid thing to say, are all utilised, and they all know their role exactly. All of them, you know. If you go forward from the centre back, that position is not empty; it's taken up and so forth. When you watch it, you know it's simple at one level, but it's very hard to keep 15 players rotating for a whole match. And he has good 30 players anyway, and they're young. The average age of the team is 26, which means, unfortunately, for the rest of the hurling team, they're going to be around for another 5 or 6 years to deal with it, at least, you know.
But Pat, they're so clinical. They're so clinical. They know. It was a semi-final now more so than yesterday, because you wouldn't have seen it yesterday. But they knew. They know exactly. They could be putting it backwards, but they know exactly where each player is. You know, they know exactly. They never get flustered. They even, we'd say, when they were the 10 points down, we say in the Munster final,
against 10, yeah.
You know, they're just clinical. And as you said, he's right. I remember, was it 2 or 3 years ago, the year we won, 2018, wasn't it? Yeah. He came down to Kennett in the club, and he asked Kennett, would they do a tournament, a charity show? And some of those lads now went into the boxing ring against each other outside in the South Court to raise money for the Limerick team. You know, I thought, well, the guy have so much money, but seemingly it's like other sports, it doesn't filter down. And it was a great night outside. It was so funny watching all the hurlers and the boxing each other. It was so funny.
Well, people realise that, Joe, before we get into it again, the GA itself, you can look at Croke Park, but you must remember that there's only one All-Ireland final every year in Croke Park in hurling and football. There's only two really occasions when you had 85,000 people in the stadium. That's the first thing. Secondly, all the income from the rights of the thing and the whole lot is obviously gone into Central Council. You have four divisions in Ireland where they get a portion of the money, the Ulster, Munster, Connacht and Leinster. Then each county get funding from the allocation to the provinces, but they also get funding from the Central Council, and they get a budget and they produce a budget. And as you said, Anna, it's not because you're winning all Ireland that the money is thrown out the door. No, the same expenses are given whether you're successful or not in running a team. And as you know, Joe yourself, buying football boots, buying socks, buying shorts, buying guards, buying stuff and all, you know, the expense of that from under 8, under 9, under 10 is a huge undertaking, you know. I'm sure, Joe, over there, even in the soccer, the running costs can be very, very big.
Oh, I mean, they're huge. You know, I mean, when kids come into clubs over here, they pay. I told you last time we spoke, you know, it's a pay-to-play kind of system, but you're only paying to be a part of the club and for your registration fees and facility fees and all that. Then you have to buy your uniform on top of that. And that costs another $400 or $500 to buy that. And then you have your own shoes that you have to buy, your boots that you have to buy. So, I mean, and these kids, you know, they're not getting $50 soccer boots. They're getting $200 and $250 boots, whatever the in thing at the time is, the ones they see the guys on TV wearing. So it's a huge cost no matter how you look at it. But you know what, Pat, I read an article a few years ago that when Limerick started this whole thing as to how they were going to move forward with hurling what have you, and how they were going to do it. They visited a lot of clubs in England, and one in particular they went to was Arsenal, where Liam Brady was the youth development coach at Arsenal, and they sat down with the backroom staff at Arsenal, and they talked about how they did things from the grassroots, from the ground level up, and they brought all that stuff back here, back to Limerick, and they started, with the younger teams, starting integrating all of this into it, so that by the time you get to be on the senior team, that this thing inside out, and the things that Pat Kiley says about, John Kiley says about, the only thing you could ever guarantee is how hard you're going to try. You can't guarantee how well you're going to play, but if you try hard and give it 100%, then you've got a chance. And if you've got 15 guys on that field that are doing that and are all working for each other, which the lads are, and then the skill level comes into it, and it becomes a force onto itself, And I think that's the legacy. And I think that, they're talking about the present crop of guys that are there for another 4 or 5 years, but our younger teams are doing well as well in the under 18s and the under 20s, So I think there might be more than a little time, but then, the others are going to kind of pick up on that, and they're going to start implementing some of the things that Limerick have done.
There's one thing that kind of worries me though, and I heard that on the radio today, and I'm not sure if you agree or not agree with me. I heard some referees now are stopping the matches, say 20 minutes before time, when the score is too high for one team. When there's too much of say if the 20 points behind, then they stop the match. This is for under 16s. I mean, this is not building resilience for any team, be losing or winning, because you kind of give up the goals for both teams, like the ones that are behind. They say, well, we will never get the last few minutes a chance to fight back, and the ones that win. So why should we bother showing up in the first place if they want the laws to pay a full match? And I think that's a bit of a worrying trend, and I've heard it a few times now today. Some referees coming out and saying, "Well, we're actually stopping matches a few minutes before time when the score is too high, and when they don't want to discourage the losing team." But to me, that makes no sense whatsoever, because all you do is then is kind of discouraging from coming back to fight back. So. I'm not sure if you agree with me and don't disagree, but I mean, I think that's a bit a strange approach of, I don't know, dealing with matches where there's a discrepancy or a high differences in quality of players. So I don't know.
That's a very interesting question. That's very interesting that people are doing that. I've coached for a number of years, and we've had the same issues, that you're playing against teams that you are skillfully and athletically you're far superior to, and the game is essentially over by half time. And what do you do now? And we had referees that would step in and referee the game differently. They would give free kicks when there weren't free kicks against the team that was winning. And we used to play. What I used to do with my teams was that if we were that far ahead, was that we would work on our possession of the ball and on our tactics as to how we wanted to move the ball. Yeah. And we could cross the ball, but we couldn't attack the box and try to score more goals. But we were still working on the functionality of the team and trying to be successful without embarrassing the other team on the scoreboard, but continue to do it. I don't know if there's a good way, but I mean, we've all been on, any of us that have been around sport for any length of time have had it handed to us quite a few times. You've been on the end of a 5 or a 6-0, and sometimes 7, 8, 9, 10, and you're going to yourself, well, this is either character building or this is I'm going to give up and not play ever again. And I wouldn't have that attitude. But calling the game early does not seem to be a good solution or a good
No.
good
Well,
trend to me.
we had that in boxing as well. We had it where we had a different system to what we have now, and it was a point system. If you thought someone landed a proper punch, you hit the button, but when it went to, if you were 15 points ahead in the contest was stopped. That was it, over.
Well, I remember that actually. I remember the boxing, the amateur, when they reached a
15
point
points
for the opposition. Yeah, there was no point in carrying on.
But saying that, Pat, I saw it below in the Munster final in Cork, where going into the last round, there was a bye and he was 12 points down and he went on to win that contest. So there's for and against it. I have been at a lot of soccer matches where the younger kids now, it could be 8-0 maybe. The referee will blow it up maybe with 5 minutes to go. I don't think anyone would object to that. Like, it's only 5 minutes, But I agree with what Joe was saying. Like with the boxing, if someone was ahead, we'd bring them back and they go into the corner, and my husband, Lord Mercy, Seamus, or my lads would say, work on your jab, only throw your jab, and not to belittle anybody, I think that's very important for kids coming up, especially.
Yeah, and if you look at what you said, Anna, earlier about the Limerick team in one of the fight against Tipperary, they were 10 points behind.
Right.
Now, according to the logic of some referees, they would have stopped it.
Yeah.
They would have not had the chance to come back and actually win the match, and that's what I find a bit bizarre, that they would stop a match or early just because a team is losing by too big a margin.
Dirk, I'm sorry, but I have never seen in a hurling match or a soccer match that it'd be stopped. We'll say it might be stopped 5 minutes maybe before time, but not a good lot of time,
No, I heard a referee this morning, actually it was Joe Duffy on the Lifeline. He said he once stopped the match for 10 minutes beforehand because the other team were 20 points behind. And I think, I can understand that maybe that they don't add extra time to it in injury time.
Certainly, as a Corkman, I'd be looking for my money back after 20 minutes in the All-Ireland final. I know I wouldn't have got my money back, but they could have stopped it, and I wouldn't have complained anyway. But we leave the final whistle is spoken on theirmedia.tv, and our email is info@theirmedia.tv. We're going to move along. We come back to the hurling at the end of the show again to mention it, because it's history for Limerick, and I confidently will predict they'll win the 3 in a row next year. But soccer, I know, Joe, are we keeping abreast of the Premiership here? And we were asking last week and the week before about where's Harry and Harry Kane. Harry Kane did well in the Euros, as we know, because of his Irish connection. We kept an eye on him, as half the English team have Irish connections anyway. But Harry turned up this weekend. He went with the team as a sub, and he came on as a sub. So Harry, hopefully all is well with Harry, but I don't know how long more he'll be at the club. Now, Chelsea, Liverpool and Man City and Brighton all won over the weekend. Do you keep abreast of that, George? Just keep a passing interest in the soccer here this side of the pond?
No, I keep up with it. We get practically nearly every game on live television here.
Oh, good.
In fact, while I'm speaking to you, I think Leicester and West Ham are playing right now.
Yeah.
I didn't watch yesterday's games because I was watching the hurling match. But I saw the highlights of the Chelsea Arsenal game, and Chelsea just looked in a different class to Arsenal.
It is.
Arsenal. It's a really tough place for Arsenal to be because they're putting some very young guys on the field, and that guys that are going to be good for the future. But what they don't have is they don't have enough experienced guys around the field to help them along. And I think it's going to be a bit of a struggle for Arsenal for a little while. I think they're going to be up and down. Chelsea, I think, are with the addition of Lukaku, are kind of the real deal right now. Man City have come back and they hammered Norwich 5-0, and they look like now. I just got off of reading the English paper, and they're saying now that Spurs are really confident that the Harry Kane deal is not going to get done, because the City's initial offer was 75 million, and they're not going to take that, and they don't think City are going to come back. They want to start at 100 million.
And
So-
before
They want actually 100 and Joe. They want 145
Right.
for him, and they're saying unless they get that amount, then they're not letting him go.
Yeah.
But then you'd say to yourself, if a player doesn't want to be at a club, is it not best to just let him go? You know,
Yeah. And
will
I-
they give their best to the team?
Well, I think that there's a couple of ways that you can look at this, and I think, from time to time things start turning in different people's favors and what have you. Back in my day, if the club owned you and they didn't want to release you, it didn't even want to give you a raise, and you came to the end of your contract, you were stuck on the same money for the next year without them having to do anything. Now you have a situation where you have Harry Kane, who I think has got 4 or 5 years left on his contract, and he's been paid very handsomely for that. But now he wants his cake and eat it. He wants out. It's a little bit like Declan Rice. I was reading this morning, Declan Rice. It might just be
More Irish connections.
Yes, another one of our lads gone. But what they're looking for. David Moyes says in excess of 100 million for him, and he wants to go because his head's been turned a little bit by the press stuff. And but he's on a 4 or 5 year contract. He's got, I think, 3 years left on his contract, with a year extension on that at the clubs, or a year's option on that at the clubs if they want to take it. And he's paid very handsomely, and they've got an offer on the table to him that would make him the highest paid player at the club. So I think that my thing here is that I've never asked for a transfer unless I was not playing in the team. And if the club came back to me and said, we're not going to let you go, we're happy to keep you, as happened with me with Jimmy Bloomfield at Leicester for a little while, and then eventually I got him to agree to let me go because he wasn't using me. And so I think that I hear your point about the Harry Kane thing, that if he's disgruntled, then why is he at the club? But Harry Kane doesn't seem that kind of a person to me.
no.
Harry Kane seems like a very genuine guy to me that works his rear end off every game, and will give his every game.
I think in this case it's often the agents behind him as well. I think we have to kind of look at that. They want their cut as well. And if they can see something, some gap where they can get a few quid themselves, I think that's why they kind of push them. It's not always the player who pushes for these things. No, but for Man City, they could have me for 10 million.
I remember Joe playing with Grimsby, and actually he wouldn't remember it, but he sent me a Grimsby jersey, because his brother worked with my husband at the time.
Oh, because no.
Yeah.
Oh, because no.
Yeah.
But, and getting back to Harry, well, that's interesting, Anna. Grimsby Town, that's interesting. But getting back to Harry Kane, he strikes me, as you said, Joe, I agree with you, as a decent type of individual. And really, the reason we're talking about him, because soccer players are commodities for the big corporations that own the clubs. And there's no doubt about in my mind, the deal would be done for Harry Kane to leave Spurs if it wasn't Man City. They don't want to sell him to Man City. They don't want to sell him to another Premiership club.
No.
They don't want the player scoring goals against them for the rest of the year. I think that's some of it. some of it myself. Well, that's what I'd be thinking anyway. If I was the owner of Spurs, you know, I wouldn't want my striker scoring 4 or 5 goals against me every other game, you know.
But I
Well,
do agree with Joe. Sorry, I do agree with Joe. I think Chelsea will be well up there this season. Now, my club is Liverpool. I love them, and they will be up there as well. Hope they can do it. But I do think that Chelsea look good this year. And you know, and it's Scottish football, but I was delighted to see Celtic winning 6-0 yesterday. It looks like they could be back to beating Rangers this year, please God.
I don't know that.
Fingers crossed on that one. I thought that was a really interesting appointment that Celtic made with their new head coach. To be honest, I didn't see that one coming. I thought that they would have got somebody closer to home, but from the things I've read about him and what he's done with the club in a short period of time, it looks like it was because last year Celtic, for all that was going on and for all that they had on the line, what was it, 10 in a row if they did it last year, it just seemed so dysfunctional. Once
they
Brendan Rodgers
didn't
left,
seem to have any pride like the other Celtic teams used to have. They played with pride, but last year they didn't seem to care whether they won or lost, Joe.
Well, and that was the thing with it, you know, and I don't know whether it's because Brendan Rodgers left and, you know, Neil Lennon comes in and, you know, he takes over a well-oiled machine and it just kept going. But then I don't know if some of the players had done their time with Neil Lennon. I mean, he'd been there 2 or 3 times. And, you know, sometimes you just need a new voice in there.
Well, that seems to be happening with Chelsea, Joe, at the moment. It seems to be working. The new coach with Chelsea seems to be working as well at the moment, you know.
I see Mr. Klopp was giving out about the referees. I know referees can be and are an easy target, but that's not an excuse for bad refereeing. And my God, there are plenty bad referees in the game. People know that. They've played it and watch it start in, start out. And I think Klopp, I admire Klopp, but I mean, I agree with Klopp what he was saying. All we want in referees is consistency. Did you hear him, Dirk, Klopp give you out about referees? Do you think he had a point?
I didn't hear him, but I know there is an issue with refereeing, and it's just that there's no consistency there. I sometimes feel we need the VAR, the VAR, especially for referees, to see how they are doing, rather than actually see if it's a valid goal or not. Because sometimes you wonder, like, and even with the European Cup there, I've seen some, even all in all, it was quite good, but I've seen some decisions like that. Jesus, I mean, standing next to a player has been I've seen red cards not given. I've seen yellow cards given for silly things as well. Like, and there's no consistency there. And I think that's going back to haunt them at some stage. But yeah, no, I think he has a point when it comes to refereeing, because they have too much power. Really, they can make or break a match. Yeah.
Now, Joe, I don't get to see much of the American soccer. Obviously, this is on our time a bit. The matches can be starting sometimes midnight our time. How is soccer in America now? Is it healthy regarding figures and viewing figures?
Oh, it's very healthy, and they're continuing to add new teams to the league they're doing it very cleverly. I mean, they're not adding everybody in at the same time, but they're doing it maybe every 2 years, and they're waiting. They're giving the new franchise a lead up time to prepare their facilities, because they're not going to come in. They're not going to allow them in unless they have their facilities in place and they're ready to go with it. And then they build their roster as well at the same time. So it's No, it's very healthy. The guys are getting well paid. Not as big money as in the Premier League, but certainly that would probably be making just as much as if not more than the Championship guys. Certainly the franchise players would be doing that, and I think the least the guy gets paid is is 150 grand for the year, but I'm not totally sure on that. But yeah, no, I mean, it's the crowds are good all around. You know, they're up to 20 odd thousand coming into games on a regular basis. When you have big rivalry games, the crowds will double in size and what have you. So it's going to be, it's been done right this time, and it's going to be very interesting to see where it all finishes up.
Yeah. One of my nephews played for half a season for an American team. I can't remember which one it was, but he was there for a year for some studies, and he played soccer, and they saw him and asked him if they wanted to play a few matches with him, and he did. He enjoyed it. He said it was a great experience for him as well, actually. So to see the difference from an American point of view and compared to Europe, and especially the Netherlands, where I'm from, see how they deal with players. Yeah.
Yeah, there is money gone in. I was reading a bit about it going into soccer. I mean, it is. I mean, the national team is not bad by world standards when you look at it. When you look at other teams who are more established in America, they have done reasonably well when they have qualified for World Cups. You know, they have held their own. You know,
But their women's team, Joe, their women's team have won the World Cup a good few times. The women's American team seem to be a very good team.
Yeah, they have.
The Canadian women's team are excellent. Didn't they win it? Oh, no.
They won the Olympics. Yeah, they just won the Olympics. They knocked the US out in the semi-final, I believe. And you know, they again, it's, you know, the women's national programs in the US and in Canada have really benefited from the college system in the United States. Because there's not really a great professional league here for women just yet. It's not taken off. But then, you know, a lot of the girls that you're looking at, and I watched the Olympic final between Canada and Sweden. I think it was Sweden, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Sweden has a professional league, and a lot of these women are playing in that Swedish league.
Yeah.
You know, and so they're playing at a decent level every week, which is, you know, we all know that the more competition you can get on a regular basis, the more you improve, the better you become, and what have you. And that's happening there. You know, I know a lot of the girls that played on the US national team were in England playing for Manchester United, Man City, Arsenal, and Chelsea. You know,
that's right. And as we're talking about women, we'll keep it that way. And the equivalent of the women's golf, the Solheim Cup, which is the women's equivalent of the Ryder Cup, we have to be parochial about this time around. For the first time ever in the history of the Solheim Cup, we have an Irish girl, Leona Maguire from Cavan. And as you alluded to there, Joe, she came through very successfully through the college golfing system in America. She was world -- 1 amateur. She had #1 in the world for a couple of years running. So she was always up there, and she played in the Open, the last major for the women the weekend in Carnoustie. I think she finished around 13th or 14th or something.
She was the first 20 anyway, they said, Joe, and she got the wild card, wasn't that it?
Yes, and she was the captain's pick, one of the captain's pick.
That's right.
And she already knew it before she played, because she got a text. She got a text from her. Oh, what's her name? I think of her in a minute. She's a well-known professional golfer. She's now the captain. She texted Leonie and said, "You're in." So it inspired me. Go on.
You know, I mean, it really is amazing to me. You know, there are some sports that really benefit and thrive from the college system.
Yeah.
Men's soccer has gotten away from that because they tended to see that young men between the ages of 18 and 22 needed to be playing and needed different competition at a higher level to really come into their prime in their mid to late 20s. So the professional game kind of took over from the college game in soccer. But in golf, you know, golf and tennis are huge sports where the college system supports and the women's soccer also that supports that particular sport. And I've watched TV here, and I've watched women's golf, and the amount of young women that are playing golf on the professional tour is absolutely staggering.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many that are coming out and doing it.
Yeah.
But you know, Joe, you're talking about the college system. Ireland have benefited over the years with the college system in America, whereas we had one of my own friend's sister, Tracy Cross. Tracy went over on a soccer scholarship, and now she's teaching soccer in one of the colleges in America. And you had an awful lot of our athletes, they got college place in America, and they made them the runners that they were, you know?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
Really,
no, I mean,
It is.
the
It is a bit of
first
a.
one I ever heard of was Brendan O'Reilly back in the day when he
right.
went, I think, to Villanova. He went to,
Mhm.
and then he had his own TV program, and
That's right.
that and stuff started getting, you know, people started looking at it. Pat O'Callaghan, a friend of mine, we were in school together. He went over to Villanova, I think. I'm not sure if Niall Cusick didn't go over as well. Niall, who won the Boston Marathon.
Right.
That's
I'm not
right.
sure if he went over
Right.
to the States on a scholarship. And I think the likes of some of the other guys, Eamon Coughlin and those
Yeah.
guys may have gone over. Tracy, you know,
And
I mean,
I remember them.
It is a bit of a. This is me from a neutral point of view. I hope you don't mind telling me saying this, but it's a bit of a sad indictment, though, that so much has been relied on the American college system for Irish sports and Irish
Yes.
teams. I mean, why can't they just have a proper sports education in this country? I mean, I don't.
Sorry, Dirk.
I don't get that.
The way I would look at it is, we're only a small country.
Yeah, but it's
You know, America's got the finances. These kids have got great educations over there, as well as playing their sport. You know, we don't have the finance. We don't have these places. We don't have these running scholarships. We don't have that in Ireland. You know.
But see, I come from the Netherlands. It's not a big country either, and I've friends in Denmark. It's the same size. Population-wise as well as Ireland, and they don't rely on an American style of college.
Right.
If you keep saying it's a small country, you're giving yourself a bit of an excuse not to do anything about it. But that's my opinion.
There has been a movement out there in Ireland a few years now, and especially in boxing and rowing. There has been a huge amount of money put in, and it's centres of excellence. And as it transpired, they've won their medals in the Olympics in rowing and boxing. Now, the same needs to be done in swimming and athletics in Ireland. But I think that they're beginning to twig that we have to set up these centres of excellence and put in budgets to treat our elite sportsmen and women like they do in other countries. And we can do it. If they can do it in boxing and rowing, they can do it.
Hold on. Go back there now, Joe. They need to put it into boxing. You're saying they're not putting it into boxing. They're putting it into an elite team.
Yes.
It's not coming down to grassroots. Where we
Yeah.
need money in boxing is for our youth team, our junior teams that are coming up. They go away to Europeans, they go away to Worlds, they come back with gold, silver, they come back with a load of medals, right? These are the kids we need to get grants, and we need to get them fit into that system. The only ones that's above in high performance in Abbottstown are our elite boxers. And they're not getting Abbottstown for free. That's costing a lot of money a year that they have to pay to rent that. You know? But
Yeah,
we
I
need
think you're right.
it's not just boxing, it's all sports. It doesn't filter down to grassroots.
You're right. What we need to do on the program, some program down the future, we'll find out the actual structure of all the sports councils and the elite, and we'll find out the financing of it and how it's run. And we'll devote a half a program to it anyway. As you talk about boxing there, I know, George, anybody see Manny Pacquiao over the weekend? It's like the old adage, the old box, they never know when to take the last fight, do
No.
they? They never know. And I watched the whole fight, and it was sad to me because he was being one of the finest pound for pound fighters. I think he won 5 titles at 5 different weights. Did you see it, Joe, at all?
I didn't see it, but I read about it, and it's just like you're saying there. You know, I mean, I read his interview afterwards, and he says that he's wearing dark glasses because his eyes are battered and he's had stitches around his eyes and what have you. And it was, he was talking about maybe not retiring, maybe doing one more fight or having one more fight. But that's the hardest thing for me to watch. Somebody like that, so good. That was, I mean, like you said, that he won titles at, I think, what was it, 5 different weights? Yeah. And I mean, he was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, the only fight that he really didn't win, which would have sealed him as probably one of the greatest in history, certainly one of the greatest, was the Mayweather fight.
Yeah.
But, he came into that fight off the back of rotator cuff surgery. And I don't know if anybody's had a bad shoulder here, but mine keeps popping out all the time. And if you go through that surgery to get it back in, it's never the same again.
No.
And that was the only fight, I think, and that was a pity that happened to him. But I mean, when he destroyed De La Hoya that time, I mean, he was just terrific. I mean, and I just hate to see it that they go.
It's a shame.
Too far.
And De La Hoya was no slouch. I mean, for Pacquiao, I didn't fancy Pacquiao and De La Hoya, but geez, I mean, he hammered him. And as I said, well, you want to really hammer Mayweather because towards the end of his career, there was a lot of hairy decisions went his way.
But Pat, I think it's very sad. It's very sad to see such a phenomenal boxer. And I'm not just talking about Pacquiao. I'm talking about any of the good boxers that they don't know when to stop.
Sure.
I love to see a boxer go. If you're going to go when you're on top.
Yeah.
Go when you're on top. And that's the one thing I worry about Katie, that Katie will go on too long.
Muhammad Ali,
she's getting that bit older and the boxers coming up are younger. Now she has a few years, all right, but with Katie, she loves boxing so much. And Pacquiao could be the same. They just can't give it up.
There's that point as well, and there's money, of course, to get money, and that's it. But I thought that certainly when Muhammad Ali took the fight with Larry Holmes, really, I mean, you wouldn't put Larry Holmes.
No.
All fairness to him, he was a good boxer. You wouldn't put him in the same sentence as Muhammad Ali because obviously that fight was a farce to me. Ali, he should never have taken that fight, But anyway, we're talking about the final whistle is the program here on littlemedia.tv. Tell all your friends about us. And our email is info@littlemedia.tv. Mark Williams won the British Open in the snooker over the weekend. Another 40 plus something doing well on the snooker table. He was away outside of it. We missed him. we missed the thing because of the excitement of hurling, but just to catch up. Now, I don't know, Joe, did you ever play Swindon Town in your heyday?
Yes, played there. Played, what was it? The county ground at Swindon used to be the ground there.
Now,
Was it county ground or the show ground? I can't remember which it was.
I forget what it is, but we were mentioned him a couple of weeks ago. Alan McLaughlin, he passed away at a very young age, you know.
Yes,
And as you know, Alan played with the Republic of Ireland, but he played. I have it written down here, lad. He played 136 times for Swindon Town, and he scored 25 goals. So they're renaming for anyone who's familiar with the ground. I'm not familiar with the ground. For anyone who is, the town end. Now they're changing the name to the Alan McLaughlin Stand in Swindon Town.
Isn't that lovely?
A nice tribute. And there are a lot of people out talking about him again, reminding people. A lot of players come and go, you know, an awful lot, but there are players who stand out. And he was a very unassuming guy, but he was a very effective player. I don't know, do you remember him, Joe? He's gone out, the poor man.
Yeah, no, he scored the goal in Belfast, didn't he?
He did.
Against Northern Ireland.
Yeah. That did the trick for us in the world, that brought us to the World Cup.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
That consolidated Ireland's position to qualify for the World Cup. Of course, since we saw you last, Joe, we're giving Joe the benefit of this. The great Gerd Muller passed away, Joe. You remember Gerd Muller?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I do, yeah.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I grew up watching those guys, you know, that great Bayern team, that great German team. The Dirk will hate this with the World Cup in Germany when their bombers scored the winner on that one.
Don't mention the war.
Yeah, that was
He's talking about soccer, lads. Before something else.
I remember the headline in after they both won the semi-finals. Double Deutsch was the headline in one of the English newspapers. So, and I remember Jack Taylor was the referee, an Englishman from Wolverhampton, a butcher, and he gave a penalty in the first. I don't think Germany had even touched the ball, and gave him a penalty in the first minute. And been heard of before. So So Johan Neeskens stepped up and scored it, and then Paul Breitner scored from the penalty spot for Germany, and then Muller scored, I think, the winning goal in the final. I mean, he was a terrific player. I mean, I read an article this morning on him. Actually, it was probably on Facebook, and Paul Breitner was talking about him, and he said, we knew if we had Gerd Muller that we would win. He said we had a structure and we all knew our roles in it. He said, but even if we didn't do it,
the Germans always say that. Germans always say that. That's just bullshit from Paul Breitner, because they always say that. Even if they have no team really, they always say they will win. So I mean, don't get me started on the German team. Anyhow,
sorry.
Move on.
Yeah.
Well, we have to acknowledge, I mean, for a team we're not condescending at all. For a team to reach the World Cup final, no matter who they are, when you structure it any time, it's a huge thing. For that Dutch team of the 70s, where I think they were correctly. Is this where the phrase came in? Total football.
Yeah.
Total football. And rightly deservedly so. I know they didn't win the final. I know they didn't win the World Cup. That's history. But what they brought to soccer, lads, they brought the 21st century feeling to 19th century soccer, in my opinion. Anyway, I don't know.
But the 78 finals, there was some talk a couple of years ago that the FIFA was still going to award it to the Dutch because of the situation in 78 in Argentina was very dodgy. everything. They should have won it because they lost because of not so much the soccer, but everything around it. But yeah, I mean, that's probably never going to happen. But yeah, we were in the finals 3 times, by the way.
Dirk, I had a young fella. Sorry, Joe. I had a young fella, and he followed Holland, even when Ireland were playing Holland. And I remember we were going up to Clahan to watch Holland and Ireland in a match. And he was only about 12, and he said to me, "Ma'am," I said, "if Holland score," I said, "you follow Holland." I said, "you scream for Holland," I said to him.
Yeah.
And they did, and he did. But I mean, he never followed Ireland up to he was about 16. He loved Holland, but they played beautiful soccer in the 70s, early 80s. And we were in America for the World Cup, and we went down for breakfast to watch Ireland against Holland to try to go through. And it broke it. Well, he was glad, but it broke the rest of our hearts to see Ireland beaten that morning,
Yeah, I know. I remember that. Yeah, I was at one of the local hotels. It was on. Yeah, but anyway, look, there you go, Joe.
That Dutch team, when I went to Leicester, we used to go to Holland every year for a youth team tournament in Amsterdam called Blauw-Wit.
Yeah.
You remember that, Dirk?
I know. Yeah, they're still around.
It was played right in the in Blauw-Wit, were in the grounds of the old Olympic Stadium.
Yeah.
And one year we had to play in the Olympic Stadium because the musical Hair was going on in the grounds of Blauw-Wit, so their soccer fields were being used. But we went to watch Ajax play. I think it was AZ Alkmaar in the semi-final of the Dutch Cup in the Olympic Stadium. And the guys that were on that team that I remember it was the first time I ever saw the Cruyff turn done right in front of me. We were at the front of the stadium, and Cruyff is playing right there, and he does this cutback through his legs, and we all nearly fell out of our seats. We've never seen anything like it before. But Neeskens was in that team. Pete Kaiser was in that team. I'm trying to think of the Rudy Kroll, I think, was in that team. That was the makeup of the Dutch team that lost. And you talk about them being in 3 finals, and they're the only team that reached 3 finals on foreign soil.
Yeah.
Because they're the only country to ever do it. They played in 3, and in 2 of those, they played the home team.
Cheapers.
Germany and Argentina.
That's right, because it was in there. That's true, and I didn't know that. I mean, that's an astonishing statistic. I think it's a positive note that's to bring to end this edition of the Final Whistle. Now, and it's been fantastic. And Anna and Dirk and Joe from Seattle, from Fairview, from Corbally, and from myself. I won't say where I'm from.
Cork, say Cork.
Is it Cork? Isn't that the team?
It could be.
Isn't that the team that's supposed to play Limerick last weekend, but they never showed up?
Well,
be nice, Dirk. Be nice.
By the way, well done again to Limerick. Fantastic. And George's fair play to you. You're looking well. You're looking younger than myself every time I meet you. We won't keep it as long the next time.
He's probably is younger than you, Pat.
He is.
Yeah. Well, I aged 10 years since yesterday, but there's a reason. That's my excuse.
Remember, Anna, Pat was actually in the 1910 hurling finals.
That's right.
He said it earlier.
He was at the 1910 hurling team for Cork. That's right.
Yeah. From Anna, from Dirk, and from Joe, and from myself, lads. It's been a blast. Thank you once again for appearing on the Final Whistle. Tell all your friends about it.
Yeah.
This edition.
Thank you.
From the Final Whistle. Good evening and take care and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.